Bitvavo, the home of crypto trading, buying and selling 175 digital assets. I always think it's pretty awesome. And I'm a fan myself, so I'm delighted to get stuck into this one. Guy, thanks for joining us.
Nice, Elliot. Great to be here today. Actually, you mentioned 157. Actually, we're close to the 200 now at this moment. We're now listing. The team is now listing more and more assets, and we were trying to become one of the biggest crypto exchanges in Europe. In a nutshell, yeah.
Do you want to talk to us a little bit about your role as a CTO of the organization and what that actually looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. I think generally, looking also at CTO role, I think there's three main pillars that are pretty important for the role. Is the people side, is the technology, and the business. So pretty much, if you can see Bitvavo was launched 2018 as really like an MVP, but very, very rapidly, just with a matter of a few years, we could acquire millions of customers. Which obviously you can imagine there's a great product market fit. It's a fully bootstrapped company. So whilst the business is there, obviously you need to build also a sustainable technology who can scale and sustain this fast growth. And this is of course built by people. So if you're looking at the pillars as a CTO, it's really the people, business, and technology.
The journey that we've spoken about over the last 4 years, I find is fascinating. So started in summer 2018, quite quickly amassed 15,000 customers, but help the audience understand a little bit more about the growth trajectory recently and coming close to 2 million customers, and tell us how active some of that percentage is as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think besides the amount of customers, of course, this is one data point, but also looking at basically at other data points because you have different type of customer, different segmentations. Yeah. Looking in 2021, there was a trading volume of close to 140 billion. If you look at that, GDP of Luxembourg or a small European country is probably somewhere around 70 to 80. So you can see it as a double than the GDP of a country. I find it very fascinating.
Wow.
Now, of course, all this trading volume, people who buy and sell actively via the platform, are our customers, and we are trying to acquire more customers as well around Europe. We're currently the fifth largest exchange in based on trading values in Europe. If you look at the other more leading exchanges are actually Binance, Coinbase, Kraken, which actually are not European. One is American, the other one is registered in Panama, operating in Hong Kong, some kind of a shady. So we are really one of the true European exchanges. We are regulated by the Dutch bank as well. And the heart is in Amsterdam, so a fully European company.
And in fairness, they're not bad names to sit behind. Let's be fair.
Absolutely.
Binance, Coinbase, and Kraken.
Absolutely, but I still feel we can kick some ass and become one of those leaders.
Well, what's your role looked like then? You're joining the business, probably coming in at quite a nice time. What did that role look like over the last couple of years? Help us understand some of the challenges that you've gone through.
So obviously, I mentioned one of them. The product was built initially back then as a MVP. I think every successful startup has to start somewhere. If you look at Airbnb, at Netflix, they all had some MVPs, and eventually you need to, in order to make them more scalable, if it's be able to amount the number of requests. Like if you look at our platform, we have somewhere between 200,000 to 500,000 sessions every single moment in the app. People who check for Bitcoin prices, for any kind of digital assets. All of this needs to be sustained by technology. Similar to Netflix, Airbnb, and many other companies face within the years, you need to, of course, migrate to a different architecture. So we did a few things. First of all, we tried to find a quick wins, and as well, we came up with a plan how to move toward a more kind of events-driven architecture, in contrast with the previous architecture, which was mostly cron-based. Cron-based is, of course, great, but it's based on a lot on database, which obviously is less elastic technology compared to technologies like Kafka and a few others. Now, of course, to build this new technology, of course, you need people. When I joined, it was a small team of around seven engineers.
Yeah.
Now we are a bit more of a bigger department. We have a much bigger capacity. But I would say we need a good plan, but we also need to make sure that we have enough people who can execute this kind of plan.
Nice. I think that the scaling architectures is something that I think we should dive in a little bit more of and understand some of the challenges and some of what you learned along the way. I think obviously the scale part with, how many sessions you are, hundreds of thousands of sessions that you're seeing constantly with Bitcoin prices, changes, and what people are looking at. So how do you develop that mindset and hire the right people to actually build some of these services?
It's a very good question. I think that basically some knowledge was also missing. So if it's really building the knowledge internally or hiring sometimes knowledge which is does not virtually exist within the company. So I think this is what we did in parallel, really building the knowledge internally. We moved towards services like more Kubernetes and more kind of events driven, more things with Kafka, so fully a live streaming platform. And of course, you start from a few places where you can get maybe more like a quick wins. You can try with proof of concept. It's also a learning experience for the team, and then within time you can, if you have the right focus, of course, you can migrate to this new setup. So the first thing was toward actually building a proper infrastructure layer. So if it's with Terraform, fully automation, Kubernetes, service mesh with Istio, all those security layer, CI/CD. Things that actually were not so, maybe sometimes basics for some companies, but it was not existing if you look at it a few years ago. When it was an MVP. So it's really building a strong foundations first. And once you have strong foundations, you can build on top of it. And this is the stage where we are now. We have the foundations, most of the foundations are there. And we're now building more toward actually changing the architecture toward the microservices, events-driven architecture. And the challenge sometimes, especially when you start as first of all, you are a small team. When you are, let's say, we were not on monolith, but if you look at pure monolith, which is maybe an easier example, you can see that if you have too many people working on this monolith, there are more conflicts. There's more. It's harder to merge things. People are afraid to deploy stuff because there's a lot of changes from all the teams, and this make it a bit more fragile and limit the speed. So this is what we could also observe somewhat. And in contrast, in the microservice ecosystem, we're trying to bring more ownership to the team. So the teams own the services. The teams can be autonomous. They can deploy separately, independently as much as possible from the rest of the teams, and move fast. And this is the challenges we are still actually facing, because we're still in the migration toward this new architecture. But you can see that there is more ownership. The speed is improving. So my maybe takeaway from this part is really about you can basically hire more people, but eventually, if you need, it's not necessarily will improve the speed. To really improve the speed, you have to make sure that you also adapt your architecture. So really, in a nutshell, architecture comes hand in hand with team structure. So both company culture, team structure, and architecture comes all really together.
Yeah, I hear that so often on this pod, as in someone said probably 20, 30 podcasts ago. I've repeated it a couple of times. Your architecture is a reflection of your communication within the business, and that will probably come down to team structure as well.
Absolutely. It's really about the right team structure, and by the way, the right architecture, but also it's good to mention that, if you start your new startup tomorrow, you probably might not want to start with all the microservices or all this advanced setup before you actually know you have a product market fit. So I think what's really important is to start as Bitvavo started, as quick as possible, see if it works, and then tackle the challenges step by step, and make sure that you pay the debt on time, the technical debt, that you adapt it, and so on.
This might be slightly away from the technology conversation that we're on, but has there been a lot of learnings building a crypto exchange? We do know crypto can be volatile. It doesn't necessarily coincide with building a product, but I do feel there's quite a lot of unknowns with the crypto space generally. Has it been tough understanding some of the business logic or some of the domain to actually build a product the right way? Has that been a challenge, or am I reaching?
I think so of course is the challenge of understanding the industry or the technology side of things, if it's a connection to the crypto world, because eventually Bitvavo is pretty much a gateway to the digital assets. Of course you eventually will wrap up with very nice interfaces, easy to use interfaces, UI, UX. But behind it, of course, you need to make all those integrations. If it's to blockchains with crypto nodes, if it's to different exchanges, we do trading by ourselves also in-house. And of course, you have the other technology aspect, which is exists in every other company. If it's like APIs, make sure that they are reliable, up and running. Bitvavo have the B2C side, so a business to consumer, as you might know, but we also have a B2B side as well. So basically, we have different clients. Actually, one of the leading stock apps in the Netherlands is also integrating to the Bitvavo API. So basically, if you buy and sell crypto assets on their platform, it's actually happening within Bitvavo. So, of course, for the B2B world, institutions, you have a different requirements, different SLAs, different needs, and this, of course, creates some complexity. But for the rest, I think if you look, the secret sauce really of Bitvavo is really keep things simple, stupid as much as possible. It's really about the simplicity. You just want to buy Bitcoin, you see an opportunity, not just Bitcoin, but any of the other close to 200 assets that we have. You just go deposit your money, you get it within immediately to your account, and you can just buy it in the right time for you with a very simple KYC process. And I think this is pretty much one of the simplicity is actually also the power of Bitvavo. So we're not aiming to be Binance with all the advanced features. That could be something maybe to consider in the future, but really make the simplicity even more simple.
Yeah, I think the simplicity on the front end and the UI, especially if I look at the market, and this is a stab in the dark, I think a lot of people really recently wanted to get into buying crypto as easy as possible because it is volatile, it is a craze, and you don't want to go through a 6 to 12 week verification process that I've seen on other platforms. That's where I see you might be able to win that simplicity value, because if you can just log onto the platform, authenticate yourself quite quickly, buy some Bitcoin, you'll be winning. Well, exactly. You're fifth, essentially.
Exactly. Absolutely to the point.
2 million customers. That's significant. Close to. So that's, I think, largely from a B2C angle, but also incorporates the B2B angle as well that you just touched on. What's been your biggest learning journey building a product that incorporates customers or consumers in the millions? Because that is pretty impressive. And like you said, that's probably been one of your biggest challenges to date in your career.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's definitely a challenge. We're trying, as I mentioned already before, is really looking what are the quick wins, because eventually what you need to do, you have a long-term plan, but the long-term plan takes some time. It takes, if I look at alternative companies like GitHub, for example, they're running the migration from a singular big database since 2018 or 19 and moved toward microservices. You can read it in their also engineering blog. So those things take time. So what you need to do, you of course need to start working on this plan, because otherwise it would never end, but more incrementally. So try to really go for iterative transformation. So do a step-by-step gradual progress. And in parallel, when it's really needed, now we see, for example, when we listing new coins, it's also allow us to acquire new customers, because people see, now there's a new asset available in Bitvavo. And this is an opportunity for people to join as well. But obviously, that's increasing more traffic. That means somewhat, which is great, by the way. It's happy news. It's great news. But to really make it sustainable, you need to find how can you give some room to breathe. So if it's sometimes could be, of course, sometimes over provisioning. If it's about which of course a quick win, there is also limitations to that, but really try to look what other technologies can give you a quick impact. So like within a matter of weeks, you can just implement them. And we looked at a few of those. We saw that we're using Kafka, for example, it helped us to release a lot of pressure from the database. Kafka is more elastic, more scalable, and we could see that the amount of incidents, if you look at downtimes, is dramatically decreased. We try to look what can we move out of the database to make it a bit more lean. So give the database some room to breathe, and that allows the business to continue growing within the short term.
I can see your CTO-ness coming in here, looking at the product, thinking about more coins coming into the platform, acquiring new customers, new technologies to allow you to scale. As a CTO of a growing and thriving startup, what else are you trying to think about at the moment? Because there are one or two things that I'm sure are part of a much bigger picture. Give us a bit of insight into, I guess, the next 12, 24 months for Bitvavo, and what you might be incorporating from potentially a product sense, a hiring sense, or a technology sense.
Yeah, it's a really good one, good question. I think we have a lot of great initiatives planning on the roadmap. To be honest, right now the challenge is mostly about what should we focus on, because there is so many opportunities, and opportunities, of course, enabled by business. It could be business opportunities, but could be market as well. How the market change. Could be also about different technologies that are available. What we're trying to do currently, because obviously you mentioned is the complexity also of building a crypto exchange company.
Yeah.
And obviously there's also the operational side of things and so on. So it's not just even the technology. So what you might want to ensure is that these as minimal operations as possible, so the team can really focus on innovation and implementing those new initiatives. There are plenty of them. If you look in the market, actually, there's MiCAR regulations which coming into Europe. Currently,
what are they?
In a nutshell, MiCAR, what does it mean? It's that if you want to operate as a crypto company, you need to obtain a license for every country. MiCAR would try to apply that you have one license and you can basically operate in entire Europe. But on the other end, it also gives new opportunities because it also allows banks to also deal with crypto, which meaning that if banks want to deal with crypto, you opening a new door for kind of more B2B side, let's say, if you work with institutions and so on. So I think there's plenty of opportunities. You can see the market of other crypto exchanges having from kind of the more financial instrument of really being a bank to provide you the credit card. You can move money between friends. It's really becoming more like a bank. And some crypto providers who more toward the trading side of things, so providing all the advanced tooling for the pro traders with all the from candle charts to different order instrumentations and so on. So I think there's enough where Bitvavo could explore. It's a question, of course, if what is the capacity? And as I mentioned, we're building now, continue strengthening our team to increase this capacity. We try to reduce as many operational work as possible. So this way we can move even faster and move toward our goal to become a leader.
Yeah, great. Okay, smart. I think even touching on some points there around market or what's in the market at the moment, or changes to regulation, changes to compliance, I can now see how they can actually, or those moving parts can actually positively impact you as a business, as in this license itself opens the doors to be able to work directly with banks, which creates more business opportunities.
It's adding, of course, a lot of complexity as well. So
obviously,
there's more requirements from the regulator as well. But to be honest, I think we're also in a pretty good shape. We have a good team who are handling this domain, and pretty much eventually we see it as a more positive way, even though this requires more changes maybe on the product or the technology, instead of delivering, let's say, a new product or improving the product itself. But obviously also eventually the regulations, it's also good for the users in case it's about really making sure that the entire crypto industry is becoming more and more mature, which is a good thing. It means it's adopted. It means that it's becoming less and less risky. If you look for the first time, I think very relevant with the Russian-Ukraine situation. Actually, you are required also, or the European basically recognize that the crypto is one channel to move funds and transfer a lot of money. So actually, as a crypto operator, you need to also block Russian wallets. So if you see this recognition on this level, it means that it also more and more being taken seriously and becoming more standard. I think the crypto world can learn a lot from the financial world, from traditional financial world, and you can see that there's a lot basic things that implement in the crypto world that are coming from the traditional world. But on the other end, the traditional financial world can adopt more of the blockchain technology and the crypto advantage. And I think if you look at the future, it's really coming hand to hand as well. So there will be a learning from the two sides, and they will become very much integrated. And that's, I think, MiCA is really the first big step to getting there.
I was going to ask, actually, what do you think the traditional financial ecosystem could learn from blockchain technology? What do you think their first learning could be?
I think is pretty much from the technology point of view. Also, after working in banking for a while, I think it's simplify a lot, creating transparency. I think that is a lot from technological point of view by itself. Whether if you are, of course, like a fully decentralized or semi-centralized. The technology behind a blockchain, I think, can be revolutionary. It's making things much more efficient, faster, and so
on. This is slightly off topic, but how do you approach infrastructure at Bitvavo, because as I listen, and I've done enough of these podcasts, and I've spoken to a number of people in payments. We've spoken to people in digital assets before. I'm keen to understand your approach and maybe cloud services that you use, or if you run services on premise, and why or why not. What's your approach and angle?
So we currently run everything in the cloud. We use AWS as a provider, as I mentioned, Kubernetes as well. Personally, I'm mostly advocating for cloud native solutions. So pretty much it can run anywhere. So if it's the Kubernetes, the Istio that I mentioned, the monitoring, Grafana, Prometheus, all this kind of ecosystem around Kubernetes, which give you the agility to, of course, you don't want to be, unless you have a very strong use case, you can also theoretically operate also multi-cloud. I think that, for example, if you look at these great solutions on all the providers, Azure, Microsoft Azure has some advantages. Working on Google Cloud in the past, they also have some different advantages. And AWS, of course, has its own unique advantages. I think that what will be useful is, of course, to use as one singular cloud provider. But if it's a good solution for another cloud provider, I don't think you need to just be hooked with a specific one. It's actually fine to maybe use some solution from Google. Of course, you have to be aware of the network request transfer cost. But for the rest, I think you don't have to put barriers on yourself to only certain set of products that one cloud provider provides.
Yeah. Could that be a challenge or is there a disaster recovery scenario that would take place at Bitvavo if something was to happen to your cloud service or environment?
The setup, the nice thing also with Kubernetes, that it's of course multi-zonal, multi-regional. Even that's what we are working on as well.
Nice.
So basically, if one zone goes down, there's two other available zones, but the load balancer can automatically switch very fast. We also have a multi-cluster setup of Kubernetes, and actually we have kind of using Istio, we can communicate between those clusters.
Nice.
And even if one cluster is down, theoretically the load balancer can move to a replicated or cloned workloads on a different cluster. It's also part with a canary release, blue-green releases, with whatever definition you're more familiar with. This is also part of it as well. So like, how can you ensure that you can roll out changes with zero downtime and have zero maintenance window?
You can see why people need to know their shit coming into the business. They really need to know their stuff to ensure that you're secure, reliable, available, so you can keep running. You can make the crypto world go round, right?
Absolutely. And I think also the security is, of course, a very important matter. How you set it up. We see that every few months is one company being hacked. And to be honest, that's of course somewhat scary also as a CTO, because we're dealing with people's money. So security is one of our pillars that is very important for us. If it's bringing the security expert in-house in our security team, if it's also hiring external provider who can audit actually, if it's red teaming, if it's pen testing, if it's checking also as an external what are the possible vulnerabilities, scanners, all those layers on the CI/CD, on the code level, anomaly detection to see that let's say there's no new ports out of a sudden used, or something is mining Bitcoin on your servers. That 3 years ago for a very known, a very useful plugin in GitHub, everyone just updated the new version, but it was actually mining Bitcoin. So I think there's a lot of kind of backdoors, and I think it's very important to stay up to speed with all of those. And on top of it, make sure that you have because even if it does happen, you want to make sure that you are covered. So that's why we're also insuring our customers, all the accounts on wallet up to a certain amount. So just make sure that you are covered from any kind of
I bet. We love to use the podcast as a vehicle for people listening who are really interested in the product, the business, what you're building. You've given us a great overview and gone into some good detail. It would be great to understand a little bit about the growth plans. I mean, in terms of hiring growth plans, so people can understand if they're the right profile. How do they get in touch with you? What are you going to be looking for? It'd be good to give us a little bit of that insight. If you can share with us what they're going to be building as well, great. But it'd be good to understand a little bit about the growth plans over the next 12, 24 months, if you know that far, but 12 really.
Definitely. We already have a hiring plan for the coming year. While obviously not just the crypto world, but the technology industry is more like slowing down or even cutting off. I think Bitvavo is fairly still a lean company. It's still a startup mindset, even though we are much more mature, let's say. So we hire quite a lot of new roles. If it's back-end roles, if it's DevOps engineers, front-end, we really hire across all the spectrum of engineering. Yes, I already mentioned, touch some of our tech stack. I think eventually, to be honest, we don't really mind what tech stack you use, as long as you are a great engineer, know the foundations of clean code, clean architecture, know scalability. That's enough for us. So if you're a curious person who loves to learn, definitely I think you will find something interesting within Bitvavo. We have currently seven teams. And we are hiring for all of them.
Love it. Okay, cool. And Amsterdam only or Netherlands only?
We are operating in the heart of Amsterdam, on the Keizergracht. We have a pretty nice office. We work, of course, hybrid. Always been the case. But everyone is currently employed within the Netherlands.
Got you. Okay. This has been 30 minutes of class of great delivery on some of the challenges, a crypto exchange growing to 2 million customers, technology challenges. I'll be watching. I watch everyone in truth, who we talk to, but I'll be watching, and I want to say a big thanks as well. You've come on board and delivered an awesome piece for us. If you're listening, guys and girls, and you're an engineer that loves clean code, clean architecture, and knows a thing or two about scalability, come and look at these guys. Have a look at Guy. Have a look at the business. They're bootstrapped, so self-funded. They're probably not going to fall into the craze of what's going on, sadly, with some layoffs. So check some of the links below. Like, share, subscribe, show your friends and family. And big love from everyone at Enginears. And Guy, thank you.
Thank you, Elliot. It was a pleasure.
Absolute pleasure. See you all soon. Hey guys, thanks for watching this episode. Massively appreciate you listening and checking in with us. If you want to find out more about us and what we're doing, please check us out on social media. What we're trying to do at Enginears is build a community to drive knowledge sharing and experiences. On Twitter, we can be found Enginears.io. It's no underscore. We've also got a website, which is enginears.io. These links will all be posted in the description. Any feedback and comments are massively appreciated. We're always looking to improve on where we can. Thanks, guys.